in action. And welcome everybody. This is PnP Weekly episode 137. It is 4th of, it says September. See?
October.
It is October.
Back to the future, right?
Wow. It is 4th of October. In the PnP Weekly, I always talk about what's happening within the Microsoft 365 platform as a whole. We call out the articles, and typically we'll have also a visitor like today. So we kind of have an interesting discussion with Serge from Canada, Montreal. Talk about his career and development and the impact of cloud and the recommendations also for new people who are joining in the cloud and want to be a consultant within this cloudy world, right? It's
cloudy.
It's cloudy.
Overcast.
But let's not actually spend too much time on this. So let's jump on the interview with Serge, and then after that, we're going to jump back on and do the articles. So let's do that. Today we have a visitor, Serge, from Canada. But before we go there, that doesn't make any sense. What am I?
We're not going to Canada.
Well, yeah, I would love to go to Canada actually. So
we're not going now to Canada.
We're not going now to Canada. Well, okay, let's go virtually to Canada. So, Serge, can you talk about yourself, who you are, and what do you do for a living?
I'm Serge Tremblay. I work here in Montreal in Canada, as you said. I've been involved with the SharePoint community since 2001, actually. So since day one, I learned about SharePoint, and it was an Exchange conference because I used to be a Microsoft Exchange specialist. And at the MEC, which were the Microsoft Exchange conference in 2001, I heard about Tahoe. And I started listening about it, and I fall into the SharePoint world at that time. And I've been involved with the community, in those days in 2001. I was not an MVP yet, so I was an MCT though. So I was a trainer, Microsoft certified trainer, and I was very involved with the Microsoft Microsoft certified trainer community. I even worked at Microsoft Tech Ready as technical learning guides, and I was doing lots of training with Microsoft trainers. And eventually, I ended up in 2009 receiving the famous MVP award, which I'm very proud and very happy about it. And I've been involved with the Microsoft SharePoint community since before that. I think I started in 2007. We had the Microsoft user group, the SharePoint user group in Montreal, and ever since I'm still involved, and I still like it thanks to Microsoft, because we see a different version of SharePoint every day now with SharePoint Online. And we had the chance to see 2001, 2003, 2007, 2010, 2013, 16, 19. And like I said,
now and online.
SharePoint Online is almost a new version every day or every month. And I'm doing a lot of stuff with Microsoft Teams too, because you cannot work with Microsoft 365 without touching Teams and without being involved in Microsoft Teams. So technology-wise, this is my story, but I've done a lot of other things in my life, like playing music, being a magician, owning a taxi business. So my first computer was a ZX81 with 1K of RAM and 1 kilobyte of RAM, and
ought to be enough for everybody, right?
Yeah.
But now, so coming back on the well, let's focus first on a historical thing and then talk about your current, let's say, work and career and all of that stuff. So you said that you've been involved or approached or been involved with the SharePoint since 2001. How would you? It's now to 2020. Past 20 years, 20.5 years, yeah, almost 21 years soon from that moment. Is the transition all good and great, and it's been awesome? Anything what you have in mind related on transitions between the versions? Something shocked you? Something changed the things within this journey?
Well, definitively the way development has evolved with doing development with SharePoint has been a big key change, making the product more user friendly. This is Microsoft way of doing things too, like making things like very user friendly. And I think the new SharePoint Online is fairly easy for people, even though like there's always like 2 or 3 or 4 different ways of doing the same thing or achieving the same results. Sometimes the end users, they get like a little bit lost on these things, but like building a SharePoint website today is a lot easier than before. What I see, people are trying to do document management with SharePoint, which can be done, right? But like it doesn't seem to be easy to achieve for everyone. Like they need, fortunately for us consultant, they need guidance, and which is good for us. But like it's still like I still hear sometimes like people saying, we tried putting all our documents in the cloud with SharePoint and it doesn't work out. But it was not really Microsoft's SharePoint's fault. It was the way they approach it and the way they've done it. So but
and to be fair, if you think about especially the document management side of the house, of course, documents are bread and butter of SharePoint and OneDrive, but we haven't really significantly invested on them for the past few years, and which will be which will be changed, of course, in the future. So now that the baseline is done for the UX in the modernization of sites, I think we'll see more and more cool stuff on the actual document management side as well. So really good directions in the roadmap, which we can't share in this call. Hey, so it's okay.
Too bad. I was expecting a lot of stuff.
You just did, so too late for that.
Yes. Yeah. But I would say, like you mentioned that you've been a consultant throughout this year and throughout this time. That's right. That's the case, Serge, right? So you've been basically helping customers on this journey. Now, if we think about your day-to-day work nowadays, how would you characterize that? Is that development stuff? Is it consulting, change management? What kind of things do you actually do?
Oh, like I can open Visual Studio Code and copy paste some stuff and do a little bit of stuff, but I don't call myself a programmer. So thanks a lot to the PnP and GitHub. Like I can do stuff and show people that I can program and customize some stuff, but like no, I'm not considering myself a programmer at all, even though I can do little things. But like I'm mostly guidance, a lot of governance. Actually, I'm getting lots of demands on governance. I specialized on that part, like especially with the cloud. If you let it's been always the same anyway with SharePoint. I've always said if you let anyone do anything anyway, like they like anywhere, it's going to become a mess. So you got to sort of manage a little bit. Like you cannot overmanage. Like I tell, like if you overmanage, then it kills the collaboration. But at the same time, there need to be some guidance and some governance in the back. So I'm doing a lot of this. I'm spending about 40% of my time training people. So I still do a lot of training, and like the COVID-19, like training people on how to use Microsoft Teams, even though for us that are technically aware, using Microsoft Teams is very simple, but for some users that are not used to computer, working from home is not that easy. So the transition was tough on some people, but like again, thanks a lot for that. Like it kept my schedule busy training them on Microsoft Teams. I do a lot of training on SharePoint also, and also implementation. Like I remember when I started in SharePoint, like SharePoint 2003, we had like contracts, like we're 8-month contracts on doing intranets. And now like I did a training, just to give you an example, I gave a 2-day training on SharePoint Online to a person that was working on communications. And like I showed her the PnP, the provisioning site for logbook, Microsoft Lookbook. And I gave her the training on 2 days. We built pages, showed the web part, showed navigation, and so on. So she went to the Lookbook. She downloaded a template. She customized the template. And 5 days later, she said, "Hey, look at my intranet." I said,
Seriously,
wow.
That's so cool.
That was crazy. Like, I couldn't believe it. And she did a good job. Like, she was pretty fast. She was good technically. And I'm not saying I'm the best teacher in the world, but like, I gave her some tips and tricks, and the provisioning site, like, provisioned the template that she wanted, like, very easily, and then she customized it, and she's happy with what she got. It's a small company, like, it's not a 5,000 users, but still she was very happy what she got, like, on 2 days of training, and she had barely worked with SharePoint before. So this is where we are at now.
Hey, so there's one thing that caught my attention. You said that in the past you've done a number of things, like you had taxi business, you did magic, right? And like to me, all of that is about the aha moments. Like you do a trick and people are like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. So what is your magic trick on SharePoint or M365? What is the thing you do? You show to folks and they're like, wow, like it blows them all away.
Oh, wow, that's a big question.
Yeah, out of blue, this is hard.
Yeah, out of nowhere, it's pretty tough.
I know, maybe you have noticed one thing, like you show it left and right, and people's like, that's brilliant. Like, I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah. Well, the tricks evolve every month, actually, every week. So one of the latest one is, like, some people didn't realize that they can pick the default application to open documents in Teams. So, like, you open a document in Teams, it opens in the Word inside of Teams, but lots of times, like, the formatting is not even the same formatting as you have if you open in a Word application. And now, like, just by going into open with, you can open and select which application you want to open it. And now when you click on the document in Teams, it opens in Word, and then you see all the formatting and all the full features of Word. This is the cool thing now. Like, just when I tell people about that, I didn't know I can do that. I wish I would have known that before, but you could not have known before because it was not there up to.
Don't say that. Don't say it. It's like, you're welcome.
Well, that's the beauty of
saying, like,
Evergreen.
the tricks evolve every month. So every month there's a new tricks, which makes my job fun too, because, like, every month we do that, like the Montreal the Microsoft 365 user group meetups, and every month I spent about, like, 30 minutes showing the user group members new stuff that came out into Office 365, so SharePoint and Teams and Forms. Now that's evolving pretty much. Everything is evolving every month, so we got like 30-40 minutes just talking about new stuff, and that's the fun part of my job. I like that.
Now that's that. How do you then stay up to date on what are all of the updates, and how would you know that Microsoft is evolving these things?
I spend a lot of time at night, like, reading articles, watching videos. With the MVP, we have, like, meetups with the product groups. We're seeing stuff that is coming up, so it's just a matter. A lot of time, like you said, we cannot talk about it, but we know it's coming up. So just keeping an eye up and say, oh, I know about this thing. I've been waiting for this now, so I can talk about it. So, but the oldest, I've been MVP since 2009 now, and it's getting tougher the older I get. Like, I seem to have less time to read and watch all the videos. I still love it. I still take time to do it, but, like, it's not like when I could stay up until, like, 2 a.m. watching videos and learning new stuff. I still learn. I still spend a lot of time, but, like, I could spend more, and I still love my job. And this is why I spend time at night doing things like that on top of my workday. So, but this is how I keep up, like, watching the forums, watching the Microsoft websites, the new stuff coming up, just Microsoft 365 not the newsletter, but like receiving the new stuff coming up in our tenants, just going through this, going through the roadmap, keeping an eye on the roadmap, Microsoft roadmaps. That's
so basically the message center posts and then the roadmap and then all of the external communication. It's just a classic discussion on that's being pretty hard for external audience to stay up to date on things, and it's a classic challenge for us on how can we fix this. Of course, the roadmap site is intended to help there a lot, and then other services as well. So
there's another thing I wanted to ask. So you mentioned that you have a Microsoft 365 user group, right?
Yes.
In the past, it was Microsoft or SharePoint user group, right?
It was the SharePoint. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's called SharePoint. We still have SharePoint Quebec user group, but we renamed it GUM 365, Groupe d'usagers Montréal 365.
So exactly, my question is like, at which point did you realize that you need to expand, that there is more to it than SharePoint, that people who used to do that in the past will find other areas like Teams or Forms or Power Platform relevant as well?
It's about 2 years ago, we decided, we knew it was coming. We still, like, our main focus is still SharePoint, because there's a Power Platform user group in Montreal. There's a Power BI user group in Montreal. So but we still talk about Power Apps once in a while. There's a Teams user group too, or Unified Communication user group in Montreal too. So, but they're mainly based on like the communication tool, Teams rooms and
the
stuff,
PSTN,
like more hardware. And we do mostly the end user stuff, a lot of the end user stuff and programming. So we still do a lot of SharePoint, mostly end user stuff, like how the technology can help to improve productivity and so on. So, and then that's about 2 years ago we've been doing this. But I've been working with SharePoint since 2001, so I like to keep the SharePoint word and the SharePoint user group in there, because we founded that user group.
I mean, you gotta show the two, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, exactly. So it's a pity that we changed the logo pretty recently, well, like 5 years ago, but still. So
I mean,
it's all updated now.
Like a whole row of them, right?
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
like,
that's a good
showing
point.
how long you've been around.
Yeah. It's just really hard to put them in your chest, because then what if there's additional one where you start putting them?
Tiles.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, my wife wants me. My wife wants me to clean up the drawers, because I've kept all T-shirts and shirts, and so I've got bags and shirts from the first SharePoint conference that was in
SharePoint
Seattle.
shop. There you go.
Yeah, that was in. But I even did that first year. I was not a developer, and I did the 2 SharePoint conference. There was the developer conference and there was the SharePoint conference. So I did both that year in Seattle, and I've got the bags and everything.
What's amazing about the Serge and all of the hoodies and everything else, they actually shrink when they're in the closet. It's just unbelievable. You try to put them on.
They're magical.
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
magical. There you go.
Hey, wait till you get my age. You'll see that they shrink a lot faster.
Well, but I guess with that, so I wonder, like, could you make NFTs out of them? Collectibles.
Oh, good point. Good point. You should actually start selling them. Yeah. There could be a market. Hey, so
you never know.
There's actually so related on that one. Just a side note, and there's multiple groups. Well, I'm in this one old Microsoft Teams group where we had like hundreds of Microsoft people, some people who've been there for 30 years, and it's amazing the stuff that people find from their drawers. It's like the release date of '95, and here's the whatever, and it's like, oh, cool, we did that kind of things. So kind of promote things and marketing and stuff. But there would be probably people who would be willing to pay that. So pay for those. So you should start selling that stuff. So
I'm keeping it. I'll have a museum. Like I'll
Yeah,
have
exactly.
the SharePoint User Group Museum in Montreal.
Oh yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool.
Cool. Now, related on we touched the Microsoft 365, we touched the SharePoint being growing to be then other services as well, and then Teams came and all of that stuff. How do you, from your perspective, position the role of SharePoint versus the role of Teams? Just out of curiosity. So how are you explaining the combination?
Well, I still like SharePoint, but like Teams now is becoming, and Microsoft has been calling it like this since day one, the hub for communication, and that's how I position it. Like Team is your day-to-day tool, but like even before we had Viva connections, like I wrote an article on my blog that was very popular on how to add a website on your left bar in Teams, so that you get an application that would open by default, and it would be a SharePoint site that opens up and present you with information. So and now a Viva connection makes it a lot easier to make, but like building content in SharePoint, visual content easily, and sharing that information into Microsoft Teams where you have all your communication and all your sharing. So now Microsoft 365 is not just a matter of SharePoint, as we said. Like there's Teams, there's Power BI, there's Power Apps, there's SharePoint. So you need to place users. Like I remember when Office 365 came out with all these tools, like, and then you had to tell people, all right, click on that waffle and click on OneDrive, and then go back to office.com and click to forms and go back on this, and then changing interface, changing ways. Teams makes it a lot easier to centralize all the content from your platform if you are using all that content and you need to use all that content. I've got some users, smaller companies, like they're 10, 12 people in the office. They use Team basically for meetings, and it's hard to make them understand the benefit of using all these tools because they don't need forms, they don't need Power Apps, they don't need all these things. So, but bigger companies, there's a huge value of centralizing all this thing into one tool, which is Teams.
Absolutely makes sense, and it's kind of a natural. Well, it's interesting to see internally we are getting more and more aligned between the Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive, which is great because it's the story is getting more. It makes more and more sense every single day, pretty much. So finally, it makes sense. Now I get it. Okay.
It's still
this is what it's for.
Yes.
It's still sad that some of the features that we have into the SharePoint, we still don't have them in Teams, but that will come. Like we got to give time.
Exactly. So how do you then see the Viva? You mentioned the Microsoft Viva, and of course, in this case, it would be the Viva connection because we talk about the integration between Teams and SharePoint. Are you seeing a high demand? What's the interest from your area?
There's interest. People want to know what it can be done because it's the new buzzword. Like you cannot go on a Microsoft website without hearing about Viva.
True.
So they hear about Viva, and every month, like people in the user group, hey, what's new with Viva? What's that Viva thing? I want to hear about it. So yes, there's the demand is there. Like Microsoft, there's big marketing, and there's a brand new, that's a new tool, and it is gonna be pretty like makes stuff easier. Like I said, the Viva connection makes it a lot easier. Viva Learning will make it a lot easier to do the trainings and so on. So yes, there's demand. People want to know about it. Are they implementing it now? I don't think they're ready yet, but they want to learn about it. And there's a few, like there's early adopters everywhere. So when they see the new phone, they want to get the new phone. So they see the new tools, they want to get the new tools and play with it. But there's other people that are more conservative, and they want to wait and make sure. Used to be the first service pack, but now
exactly. Classic story. Yeah. Now, Serge, we want to be obviously conscious about the timing, so we're going to go a few minutes longer. But what I wanted to actually briefly ask still, and then Waldek also for the final questions is, now you've been in the business for quite a long time and you've done quite a lot of things and see the evolvement of the cloud. Would you have any like 3 tips for new people who are joining on the IT and joining Microsoft 365? How would they, if they would want to be like 30 years in the consulting business? Any tips from your side on that, from your career?
Well, keep on learning. All right, especially with 365, you cannot just sit there and say, all right, I took a 2-day class on SharePoint and I know what SharePoint is and that's it. I'm not learning any new stuff. Like you got to be aware that you'll need to keep on learning. Depending on your IT job, like if you're going to do administration, you cannot get away without knowing some PowerShell. So learn PowerShell, learn some of the stuff, keep on learning, and think about the users. That I say it all the time for IT people, like they're still old. I see old and young IT people now in my classes, and some of the older IT people, like they're used to run servers, they're used to give a service, but they're not implementing the service and they don't think about the users. And all these tools are made to improve productivity. They're made to improve like the user's way of doing things. And if you don't think about the users and you don't train the user and show them, like I say it all the time, like Microsoft Teams is there as a productivity communication tool, but if you don't plan and build your team and show people that you can add tabs for websites, that you can share documents and how to do these things, it's not every users that will learn it by just playing around with it. So they will need training, and train your user, think about your users and analyze their business need. Like you need to cut a piece of wood. You can use a chainsaw, you can use a hack, you can use like a drill if you want and drill many holes, and eventually it's going to cut off that piece of wood. So but what's the best tool for your users? What do they want to do? And this is one of the things that IT professionals will, yes, we need specialized in technology, but we need to think about the users because we're giving a service to the users. And if we don't improve their job and we make a major change and say, all right, you're not using your file servers anymore, we're going to the cloud, all your documents are into SharePoint, this is how you access your SharePoint. Sorry, that doesn't work. Right? Your users will not do it. Think about the users. If there's one thing you got to remember, is probably the one.
Makes perfect sense. Waldek, any last questions?
Last questions? No, because we'll be going way too long. I'm going to ask him about his past and his story of his life experience with stuff, and it's going to be like for another hour. So
we could do that. We could do this over a beer in the next in-person conference that we're going to meet.
Well, that will be probably still a bit.
2025?
No, maybe if at all. So yeah,
we'll see. But from a timing perspective, thank you, Serge. Thank you for joining us. Good discussion about your career and what you do and your experiences and all of that. So really, really interesting insights as well. And thanks for everybody again watching. We're gonna flip back on in the podcast or in the video. We're gonna flip now to the article side of the house, and we'll cover those together with Waldek. But thanks, Serge, for joining us on this discussion.
Thanks for hosting me. Bye.
Bye.
Excellent. Thank you. Cool. Okay, so that was a really cool discussion with Serge on his career and experiences, and it's interesting to see. So we're not intentionally looking into recruiting SharePoint with people with SharePoint background, certainly not. But it's clear that all of the, let's say, people who've been in the Microsoft 365 for a more longer than decades quite often are saying that they have a SharePoint background. So it's kind of intriguing as well. But
I mean, if you think about it, way back when, SharePoint was center of gravity for many things, right? It was a very important piece of tech, and in a way, it still is. It goes, like you could say that it goes more into background, making available now things or exposing things like services, content services, pages. So we still did this underpinning layer, and there are new experiences on top of it.
True. Which is kind of additional abstraction layers, partly making it easier and aggregating stuff and all of that. So it's really interesting where we're heading. Now, anyway, let's actually jump on the articles and to go them through today as well. So we make them the latest what's happened in Microsoft and the community. So let me come in here and then share my screen. So Microsoft Teams already published their September 2021 update. So basically what's new in a monthly basis. To be honest, I really like this. So and in the discussion with Serge, these are kind of those articles which as a consultant you always go through and basically read and understand, okay, what's happening within the specific products. Now, SharePoint didn't do the monthly yet, so I'm expecting Mark or somebody else to release that later today or tomorrow. Depending on when you're watching this video. But anyway, so these are really good for catching up on what's happening and really a lot of cool stuff happening in the Microsoft Teams, making it easier for people to use it. And the presentation presentation techniques is really, really cool. I really like this, the presentation integration in PowerPoint. Not explicitly just this one, but the video presentation together with slides, and it's just insanely cool. So it's available in Apple CarPlay, which is really cool as well for those who have a car which understands what that is. I actually do, but I don't use it. So maybe I should actually double check that. So that would be an interesting. So and a lot of stuff on the devices. I think the devices, the dynamic view on a single and dual displays was really, really cool. And the splitting of people in the room to make them available in the same level as the people who are calling remotely. That's insanely cool feature. So support for large meeting controls, so adding those settings, a lot of additional cool things. That's the presentation mode support. So having more flexibility here as well. A lot of stuff happening, a lot of devices and new stuff happening. Of course, now we're getting closer and closer. Hopefully they get to the office, or some of us will get to the office. But of course,
you are in the office, right? So
I'm in the office. That's true. Yes, indeed. It's been pretty much my office for the past 6 years. So, but a lot of stuff happening on the Microsoft Teams. Had a lot of excitement on the comments as well. Now, on the Microsoft Graph site, there was a general availability announcement on the Microsoft Graph export APIs for Microsoft Teams messages, which is really cool as well. So basically, you're able to export the messages in the tenant level if needed as a batch, and then analyze that and do whatever is needed. Now, this provides additional set of, let's say, partner opportunities and of course customer opportunities on getting access to the information. Really cool stuff as well. Now, this is really cool from Luis Fries and Carmen. I can't pronounce it. That you help me.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's much better. They've been creating this provision Genie and open source provisioning engine for Microsoft Teams. Really cool stuff. Basically using the Power Platform as much as possible to then implement a provisioning engine in the Microsoft Teams and making it easy with the documentation, step-by-step things. And it's open source in GitHub. So really, really cool stuff and a clean UX and implementation, which is super cool. Now, and I have to say that it's a nice looking logo as well. So that's pretty clever. So extra points on a cool looking logo. Now, Shandani Prayapati had a new blog post in the PnP blog related on guidance on how to use the React data table web part. So this is basically a web part, open source web part, which she wrote previously, and then this is additional guidance on how to use it. So downloading the package if you want to actually just take the package and use it and consider basically using that within your tenant. But really, really cool stuff on presenting information in a more flexible way and with all of the sorting and all of that stuff as well. So really, really cool. This one, Arjun Menon had a blog post related on get permission report for SharePoint Online or OneDrive file using CLI for Microsoft 365. So CLI is really the easiest way to hit the API endpoints, and then this blog post basically explaining the how would I export, how would I get the information in the right format out. That's actually quite easy. So great job on the CLI for Microsoft 365 for making that so easy as possible. So
thank you.
Really very cool. Now, so Simon Hudson had a looking at the things in profile. So basically what is the user profile, where is it exposed, how is it exposed in Microsoft 365. It actually identity is in Azure, and so the information is stored in Azure, and how does those updates then reflect from Azure, the SharePoint and the other services as well. So really cool stuff as well. And then also, what is the relationship between the SharePoint user profile service, which we haven't really evolved within the past years. It has still a really important piece and functionalities in SharePoint, which are dependent on it. But we haven't really invested on the user profile service as such. It is, however, the easiest way to add a custom property for an identity, which is really cool, because then you can use that to store information, but you can. There's no APIs to do that, so it's kind of you can, however, add those attributes also in Azure AD profile. So it's kind of, there's multiple dimensions on this, and as we can see, the future will be more and more focusing on the Azure AD side of the house, because that's the one unified profile of you in a centralized location, which is Azure AD. Now, cool blog post also from Paul Schafferling, not just blog post, but also the developer podcast, latest on Microsoft Graph SDKs with Maisa Risi and Darrell Miller. So really cool summary on there. So good discussion on updates. We've been having a lot of the SDK updates also covered in the Tuesdays weekly platform call, but it's good to get additional formats, additional things, so people know what's actually happening in the Microsoft Graph side for sure. And then David Chestnut had a September 2021 update on the Office add-in samples. So David is running the show on the Office add-in side of the community and open source side, and calling out all of the people who contributed and what are the new samples. So really cool stuff as well. Mark D. Anderson had a great blog post related on grant permissions to all communication sites associated with the hub site. So basically resolve the hub site and then manage permissions in those sites which we resolve, and basically using PnP PowerShell in this case to make things easily available and just execute the PowerShell commands, basically manipulate in loops all the associated groups and then associate to them those permissions. So cool stuff as well. Running Power Apps as Edge extension, which sounds pretty interesting. So, but Edge in this case means the Edge browser. So Edge, the browser, what we're saying in here, and you can actually integrate the Power Apps as an extension there, and that's actually pretty cool. So
yeah.
So steps doing that and the learnings and how to make things happen. So from API, just do epic stuff. So. It's a family show, so I'm not going to
see what you did there
directly.
See what you did there.
Now, Sergeyev has a call Azure ID secure Azure function from Logic app or another function which manage identity. The manage identity here is really the key. So making sure that you do not need to store the credential details directly within your application. So kind of delegating the responsibility of that to a secure location, which is good.
80.
So, which is 80. Yeah, absolutely. Which should
no
be the most secure.
No anything. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is really cool story as well, and learnings from the day-to-day work, which is really cool. Now, from Liam Cleary, create conditional access policies using Microsoft Graph PowerShell. So how do we create those conditional access policies using Microsoft Graph PowerShell, which is now available? Well, it's been available for a while. So what are the steps to actually make those calls to happen, and how do you connect, and how do you then create those identities using the PowerShell commands? So new MT identity conditional access policy. Good samples for sure. Two more. So we have from Mark Rackley, execute JavaScript, TypeScript, Excel formulas from Power Automate, which isn't Power Automate kind of low code, but TypeScript is then code.
But depending on form, so you could maybe do maybe there are some math operations you can do in TypeScript, or I don't know.
100% agree then. So and that's probably the easiest way to then is it string manipulation or math manipulation and all that stuff. And Mark also had a video related on this learnings and how to make that happen. So really cool stuff as well. So thank you, Mark, for that. And then the last one from Peter Venstra. Calculate travel distance using Power Automate. So basically, we have a 2 points of a location and waypoints, and then calculating that the distances between using Power Automates. And that's actually really cool.
And Bing.
And Bing APIs. Yeah. So basically point, and what is the distance between, and what is the travel duration. So really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. And that's all we're going to do on the article side this week. Anything new on what's happening and exciting what's happening on your side?
A lot, right? So I just wrapped up building a demo app with SPFX. That was an app that was meant to showcase developing for Viva connections and Microsoft Teams on SPFX, right? So that was pretty cool experience for me to basically firsthand see how does that work, how do you expose something built in SPFX in Teams and Viva, right? So that was really interesting experience, but that thing is already done. With that,
by the way, I have to say you collected a significant amount of awesome feedback related on how we can improve that, and that's super great as well. So thank you for that.
Cool. You're welcome. With that, I can get back to working on a learning path that will be hopefully a useful resource for everybody who's looking into how you can extend Viva connections to your needs. So I'll be back to that. And again, as we said the last time, we hope to be able to ship that in the coming weeks.
Yep.
Other than that, we're finishing work on a new version of CLI for Microsoft 365. It's going to be V4 breaking changes, so a little bit more work for us just to wrap everything up, including the guidance, how you can move from V3 to V4, what has changed, and what are different actions you need to take in your scripts or your work that you already have to ensure that it will keep working. So that's coming out, who knows, depending when you watched it, by the end of this week, or maybe it already happened.
Yeah, there we go. And on my side, we're starting to finalize the 1.13 release of SharePoint framework. So that's going to go to GA relatively soon. So we're doing final testing and documentation updates and all of that. So one big change in 1.13 is that we're dropping the local workbench because first of all, it wasn't super widely used, and keeping it up to date on what's happening in SharePoint Online from an experience perspective is insanely costly. So we basically made a decision that we need to drop it. And then that does, however, mean that all of the hands-on labs and tutorials, which were dependent on the local workbench, explaining the value of that, will have to be now updated. So that's the work that we're doing right now. So making sure that the docs and guidance is up to date. And not an optimal situation, but sooner or later we needed to do this. So it's just better to do it now. So a lot of adjustments there, and then making sure that we have the tutorials and the guidance for Viva Connection up to date. So for the GA, but that's cool. And a lot of other stuff, of course. But hey, that's a normal thing. So. But thanks everybody for watching this week, and please give us feedback. If you're writing some cool articles and all of that, please use hashtag PnP Weekly in the Twitter, so we can actually cover them in this talk as well, so we can find them. The challenge for us is really to find the awesome articles what the community is writing, so we're able to promote them. So simple things. But thanks everybody, and we'll be back within a week. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.